to Pellegrino Walk for another episode of The New Thing, Tricia Tillin article that we've been going over for quite a while now. And, well, not quite a while, just for probably 3 or 4 episodes, I believe. But at any rate, my name is Kevin. This is my wife, Barbara.
Hello.
And thank you for joining us today. So we're just going to jump right in.
So today we're going to talk about how the Gnostics dealt with the material world. And the big issue for the Gnostics was that they had a problem and that they were undeniably living in fleshly bodies and on a physical earth. So this didn't fit with their ideals of spiritual transformation. So they had to literally subdue the flesh. There were 2 ways that they went about doing this. One was asceticism, and the second was licentiousness or libertinism.
Yeah.
We're going to start out with asceticism. Talk about that.
So we're just going to start reading from 1 John 4 because it has a lot to do with Gnosticism that had really started, well, it was actually before the time of Jesus, but it was a major problem with the early church. So starting with verse 1 in 1 John 4, Beloved, do not believe every spirit, but test the spirits, whether they are of God, because many false prophets have gone out into the world. By this you know the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in the flesh is of God. This is specifically talking about the Gnostic views that were saying, no, we don't need that fleshy body, right? And so they were even saying, some of the sects were saying Jesus came as a phantom and that he wasn't really in the flesh.
Like a ghost.
Like a ghost, right? And every spirit that does not confess that Jesus Christ has come in the flesh is not of God. And this is the spirit of the Antichrist, which you have heard was coming and is now already in the world. And I think that was the issue back then. The Antichrist spirit was already in the world. And our take, at least I would say my take on that, is that this Gnostic idea, a lot of the ideas from Gnosticism were already there and formed. And now we're seeing a huge resurgence of it in the world and in the church.
Right. It's really interesting when you start talking about asceticism in the church. And the asceticism, what that actually is and means is that they basically renounced everything of the flesh. And so what that would look like is everything from marriage, procreation, and then you've heard a lot of times about like some of the Catholic mystics, the Desert Fathers. I know we were going to talk about that a little bit. Right. They had ultra strict diets, and they embrace these very, very extreme and harsh living circumstances, kind of to mortify the flesh. And they were trying to deny themselves anything that they could possibly give them comfort on earth, anything that they deemed as a worldly comfort. And so the thing that I think is fascinating that Tillin highlights is the reason that they did this is in order to liberate their divine spark. Right. We've heard that. Yeah. And rise to the spiritual level. So it was seen as something exalted. And I think we've talked about this with the Desert Fathers and some of the Catholic mystics that you hear about.
Well, sure, but you see it evident in the church today. Let me give you an example. Probably you haven't thought about it. What about IHOPU and the students? Right. And what about the strictness of the things that they were kind of forced into in a lot of ways? Or when we look at the movements that are out there that we've certainly been talking a lot about, what about the idea of, hey, you're not praying enough, so here's some prayer points for you, or hey, you're not fasting enough, and all that, which is more from the outside placed upon the individual. These individuals at the time, especially when we're dealing with the Desert Fathers, are the ones that actually put the restrictions on themselves, right?
Right. And I think the interesting thing is there's like a pendulum that swings from one side to another, right? So you swing to the prosperity gospel side where everything's fabulous and prosperous. You can have huge
victorious
homes,
living,
great cars, Lear jets. And then there's another group that swings all the way to the other side. And it's like, I mean, some of these guys would actually whip themselves until they bled. And, these things that seem a little extreme. And I don't know, you know, enforcing a self-imposed poverty level. Living simply is one thing, but trying to mimic things. One, I think it's not biblical, and two, I think people that live in like developing nations, I think it's really offensive when people who are living in places that they don't have access, and they're in places of real poverty, real famine.
Yeah.
So this whole fake self-imposed thing, I think, isn't very honoring to our brothers and sisters that live in developing nations at all.
So we were just talking about IHOPKC, right? So right before our big desert experience, right before the Mike Bickle explosion with IHOP, right? We went and audited a course at IHOPU.
We did.
Which was called the Desert Fathers, right? It was really interesting because we learned a lot of interesting stuff, stuff that I would not want to emulate, of course. But we did learn a lot of the history of it, which was really interesting. One of the things that I remember, as you were talking about people, self-inflicting wounds on themselves, was a movie they recommended in that class, which was with Robert De Niro. It was an older movie where he had to climb the Mission, it's called. Yeah. He had to climb the falls and somehow do penance for the things he had done in his life. So that self-inflicted asceticism.
Yeah, and I think we often outside of the class would talk about just some of the books and some of the extreme examples. And I think sometimes even in the Christianity, the non-Catholic Protestantism, I'm seeing a lot of, I remember hearing about that a lot. And you and I used to have conversations about this in Kansas City when we were still there in the beginning, about how often Catholic mystics were referenced from the pulpit and from the platform. And, just kind of
This was at, are you talking about IHOPKC?
Yeah.
Or? Okay.
I mean, and not just IHOP, we talk about Augustine a lot, and we talk about, there's a lot of these Catholic mystics that have practiced different levels of renouncing things for their order or their sect. But I think sometimes we make the mistake of, like you were talking about earlier with IHOPU specifically, it was kind of like a badge of honor if you were fasting a lot, or you were giving up things, or
the exact opposite of the Sermon on the Mount, right? You're kind of fasting in front of people, or required to do it in front of people. Yeah, it was vastly different, but man, I remember with the Desert Fathers, speaking of this asceticism, that they would separate into tiny little cells, and this is in Egypt, in really, really remote conditions, hot weather and all that. And they would talk about their prayer life and how they'd be battling the demons out in the desert, right? They would be battling the demons. And I remember thinking about that. I'm like, this is crazy,
right?
But it's that extreme fasting. It's that extreme taking things to an extreme where your body is going to react in different ways, your mind is going to react in different ways, and you're going to have to deal with that a little bit. And some of them were dealing with the fact of, hey, I don't want to lose my mind out here.
Well, and I think the thing that was really fascinating is the level that they were fasting. A lot of them were eating or drinking nothing, or Saint Anthony comes to mind. Some of the different ones that they had removed themselves from society. Saint Anthony, I think, was living in a cave. And so to me, when I look at the Bible and it talks about holding each other accountable and being in community, and
that's not it.
I don't think this is an honoring thing when you remove yourself so completely. And then basically held up by other, I mean, it talks about some of the things we read that where they make pilgrimages to go meet these remote desert fathers, and they go see them. And so they kind of held them
because
up
they had this
on a platform.
wisdom, right?
Right.
And people would go to visit them in the desert. It was interesting from a historical perspective, but of course, this is a perfect example of what we're talking about here. What Tricia Tillon is talking about with asceticism, one way in which the Gnostics could deal with the fleshy human,
right,
to be able to get to that divine spark and have it released.
Right. Well, and Tricia goes on to say in her article, giving an example of scripture and how the Bible actually speaks against this kind of self-mortification. And 1 Timothy 4:1-3, now the Spirit speaketh it expressly that in the latter times some shall depart from the faith, giving heed to seducing spirits and doctrines of devils, speaking lies in hypocrisy, having their conscience seared with a hot iron, forbidding to marry, and commanding to abstain from meats which God hath created to be received with thanksgiving of them which believe and know the truth. And again, that's 1 Timothy 4:1-3. And there's a lot, again, what I was just referencing about the fact that they often isolated away from community. They're not serving other people. They're not in community. Right. They're just kind of off by themselves, wrestling their demons.
Yeah,
sort of, really, literally, in a lot of examples that we read.
Yeah, and with the heat out there and the exhaustion, the water, lack of water, with the fasting and being confined into a small cell, I mean, you're going to be battling your mind as well. So these are really good examples.
Right.
And let's bring that into the modern context. And we did a little bit with IHOP, but when we're doing things like that, or when we're in a situation where we're under authority of some sort, maybe it's a pastor, maybe it's a movement, an apostle, a prophet, and you're being told to do things the way that they want you to do. Again, a little bit different than self-imposed, but
forced asceticism.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah. I think
that's probably a thing.
That is a thing, honestly.
So now looking at the other side of the spectrum here, licentiousness. So other Gnostics held that because the world is evil and their bodies were fallen, it didn't matter what they did. They considered the Old Testament law as the fallen God's snare to entrap them in this world. So they were amoral. They accepted no laws. This is the fallen God, the demiurge of Gnosticism. While the former group became saints of Christian mythology, the latter lawless group has evolved into Satanists who break the law deliberately. Satanists openly worship Lucifer and believe, like the Gnostics, that the God of the Old Testament is repressive and despotic. So really interesting stuff here, because it has so much application to right now, and this whole article does, obviously, because we're going to get into some really good stuff as we move along, and the roots of a lot of the stuff that we're seeing right now of perfection and manifest sonship and all that, but this is the kind of the foundation of the whole thing right here. So I've been wanting to talk about this mirror translation for a while now, and this is a good opportunity, and we won't hit it too hard here, but guy by the name of Francois de Toit, I think I'm saying that right, but anyway, he's from South Africa, and he created this mirror Bible translation. And the interesting thing is, it's more of a universalist Bible. So, I mean, a lot of words have been changed, and it's been made to where, hey, everybody's okay. We're all going to get there. And it's total new age, basically, at one-ment. The only sin possible is the sin of separation.
Okay.
But this is a Bible translation, and some people are starting to use it, and it's getting a little bit concerning. So I wanted to talk about that from a little bit. This is a quote from Francois, kind of his mission, so to speak, and I'll just read this real quick and you'll get a good flavor. The mission of Jesus was not to begin the Christian religion, but to reveal and redeem the image and likeness of God in human form. He did not come as an example for us, but of us. Much of popular Christian doctrine reduced the life and teaching of Jesus to yet another display window message, while the very intent of God was to uncover the blueprint life of our design in Christ as a mirror, where he is introduced to us not as Christ in history or Christ in outer space, nor even as Christ in a future event, but as Christ in you. Oh, that sounds pretty good, Christ in you. That
sounds
part,
familiar.
Those 3 words sound good out of the whole paragraph.
Sounds familiar.
Yeah, it does sound familiar. So
context is horrible.
So the interesting thing is, yeah, it's universalism. It's you're okay, and you're going to get there.
Yeah, it reminds me of the Baha'i faith, where it's kind of anything goes. And I think if I remember correctly, and forgive me, we've been talking about this mirror translation a little bit between ourselves, and there were a couple things that stood out to me. One, I believe it's being used at Bethel School of Supernatural Ministry. It's one of the preferred texts. 2, didn't you say it was that he came out with it in like 2013, 14, 15, somewhere in there?
Yeah, something like that.
And it kind of like the Passion Translation with Brian Simmons.
A little bit at a time.
He didn't have a academic group of people who were,
I don't believe so.
Which all the Bible translations, it's a rigorous testing process. And again, like Brian Simmons, where he just kind of wung it. Is that a word?
It is now.
He did it himself and just kind of, this is that similar idea, which is really problematic if you're trying to be biblically accurate, academically rigorous. Again,
yeah,
that's just a standard, basic standard.
All right. Yes, I agree 100% on that. But I wanted to get into a little bit more on Francois de Toit, the mirror translation. There was what do you call it? On made him a friend, or if I followed him on Facebook.
Oh, friended.
Is that what it is?
I know that word.
I don't know these things.
But, I don't do it, but I've heard of it.
But yeah, I did, and it's really interesting because all kinds of crazy stuff comes, filtered in, and so yeah, the whole Facebook thing, and I've been occasionally, when I'm bored, which is not that often, I'll flick through it and kind of look at some of the comments, and this comment came up, and I thought this was interesting, and certainly shows what the people are thinking who are reading this Bible. So
right. Okay. So this is a comment that was on his.
This is on I believe it's the Mirror Study Bible group on Facebook.
Okay.
So you can look it up. But right here, one of the biggest lies I frequently hear from the Western Church is that we must die daily. Isn't that interesting?
Ooh.
Of course, that proclamation is made without the understanding that we are already dead. And look at this translation of Galatians 2:20, and I'll pull up Galatians 2:20 for you here in a second, but the Mirror Translation. So here I am dead and alive at the same time. I'm dead to the old me I was trying to be, and alive to the real me, which is Christ in me. Co-crucified, now co-alive. What a glorious entanglement. I was in him in his death. Now I discover that he is infused in me.
No.
Wow. In my life. For the first time, I'm free to be me in my skin. I don't think that's what Paul was saying.
That reminds me of Marlo Thomas, Free to Be You and Me. Wasn't that in the 70s or 80s?
I don't know. That was before my time. Immersed in his faith in our joint sonship. That's funny. The Universalists are talking about sonship, isn't it?
Right.
That's it. Where have we heard that lately?
So many places.
He loves me and believes in me. He is God's gift to me. Okay, now we're going to look at Galatians 2:20.
Okay.
And this is the New King James. I have been crucified with Christ. It is no longer I who live, but Christ lives in me. And the life which I now live in the flesh, I live by the faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. Yeah, so I just wanted to talk for a second and switch back to the Mirror Translation version, especially in context of what we're talking about, licentiousness.
Right.
Because what this movement is, well, it's, New Age, right? You can have a spirituality. To be spiritual is a good thing, but without laws, right? Because this oppressive demiurge God from the Old Testament is going to put all these restrictions on you. And Jesus just affirmed that when he came. So why have that when we could just be spiritual? We can do whatever we want. And once again, we can have kind of a form of Gnosticism. And how much is this Gnosticism just like the Gnostic thought that's coming out of sonship,
right?
Manifest sons of God, the movements that we're highlighting right now.
Right. When you're reading and the comment and then the passage in Galatians 2:20, the mirror version, I kept thinking about when Jesus is talking in Luke 9:23, and he was saying to them all, and he is Jesus in this, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross daily and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake, he is the one who will save it. For what is a man profited if he gains the whole world and loses or forfeits himself? For whoever is ashamed of me and my words, the Son of Man will be ashamed of him when he comes in his glory and the glory of the Father and of the holy angels.
Well, really, really good that you read that because these are Jesus' words, and once again,
right,
they're twisting them and turning them, and what a sad thing. And here's the problem with the whole scenario that we're talking about right now, and really why we're getting to the point of licentiousness.
right.
And it's because we're seeing it in the church today. Well, where are we seeing it? Well, a good example of this is Bethel Church, Reading. Benny Johnson was quoting it before she passed away. Also, Bethel Austin. There is a trainer by the name of Bill Vanderbush. He's the lead trainer, apparently, at the School of Ministry in Austin. And I've seen this myself. He makes comments on the Mirror Study Bible Facebook group all the time, and they use it.
Right.
So some of our conversations lately have been, okay, well, when are they going to finally reveal who they're serving? This is all blending. All of this, if we see sonship mentioned in this Mirror translation, it's because sonship like that and out of the latter rain, it's all coming from the same place. It's coming from the same pot of muck.
It's coming from a bad root.
Yeah, it's coming from a bad root.
The root is bad, the fruit is bad.
We've been talking about that. So other people that use this translation, Creflo Dollar uses it all the time. Once again, Extreme Word of Faith, John Crowder, Kenneth Copeland, are just a few of them. And then
about Andrew?
Well, Womack? Andrew Womack, I don't know that he's used it himself, but I've seen that they use it in a lot of their study groups, at least from what I've been able to determine online. The problem with this situation, and this is a perfect time to talk about this, because we have in the Christian community, we have this big blow up right now of Bethel Church and all the things that have been going on. And we have a particular YouTube channel that has exposed things going on. And we've kind of stayed out of the mix on that. And one of the reasons why we have, well, I think I need to say this. One of the reasons why we have is because we feel that these are the fruits of a bad root at Bethel. We know what the root is. And so we're seeing these fruits, and Barb and I are not surprised by the fruit. In fact, when we started this channel, we wrote this particular YouTube channel and told them, listen, we're seeing this manifest sonship thing that's going to happen on the Washington Mall. And this is the root. It's really the root, because what we're talking about is Christ in us, but a deified way, right? So we wrote, they eventually wrote us back and said, oh, we're too busy. We got too many other things going on and we can't, but maybe someday in the future.
Right.
And I was amazed at that because honestly, folks, what we're dealing with, it's going back to Genesis, right? It's the lie in the garden. It's the big lie, as Steve Montgomery talks about, the deification of the human being.
Right.
And the problem is all of those roots are at Bethel. Right. All of those roots are at IHOPKC. They're in this movement, this great communion revival movement. They're all over the place in there. So if we go in and say, why does your fruit look bad? Why does it? I don't understand why your fruit looks bad, leaders.
Or the fruit keeps looking bad.
Why? And we're surprised every time.
Right.
But listen, the root is bad.
Right. And
we're talking about deification here.
Right. Right. And this is something I've started to talk about. And I've been doing some Substack, and I'm getting ready to post this one. But I've been camped in Matthew 7. Right. And that's one of the conversations that we've been having is, here's the thing. You will know them by their fruits. Okay. So you'll know them by their fruits. That's great. But if we see the fruit, then okay. So every good tree bears good fruit, and the bad tree bears bad fruit. A good tree cannot produce bad fruit, nor can a bad tree produce good fruit.
Right.
Right. So again, that's Matthew 7, 16, 17. But that's the conversation, right? Is why we expect any kind of different fruit if we know the root is bad. And that's why we've been so passionate about, that's where I was going with IHOP, is the fact that like the root was a lying false prophet and a lying from prophetic, who was not surrendered to the Lord in his life, in his heart. Only God knows all the things, but from his fruit. So I think this is like, when you talk about the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. If I keep seeing bad fruit, I shouldn't be surprised. And at some point, and this is what we were trying to do, and we have been trying to do for months now, is we need to go, okay, why does the fruit keep stinking? Why is the fruit rotten?
That's what we were doing in the beginning, though, right? And
that's what we did in the desert.
That's where everybody goes in the beginning, and that's okay.
Right.
But we can't.
You can't stop there.
Yeah, I remember, like, wait a minute. No, it's got to go. It's got to go deeper.
Farther.
Got to go deeper than that.
You got to unpeel that onion, another layer.
Yeah.
Because you
it's one and massive onion.
I mean, that's literally what happened to us in the desert that we talk about over and over again. We weren't trying to do that. It was just the more we would unpack, the more there was so much more baggage, and we had to keep going.
Something like that I was talking to you about, you were bringing something to me, and I was like, "You've got to be kidding!" Oh no, there goes that. Right. I held on to that for years. Right. That's gone now. Oh Lord, what else are you going to take from my past?
Being stripped away.
Oh,
yeah.
I remember those days, and we still have days like that. We still do. We're still digging. We're still processing some of this stuff.
Well, and it shows up, and I think that's the thing, is why does it show up, and what is it unto? And again, if we're not looking at character, and that's what that's what I was talking about with Substack, is I was trying to just go through the Matthew 5 through 7, but I started a little bit in the middle, and I had to keep going back because I had to see the context, and then I eventually, because I was looking at the narrow gate, and then I had to go back to like, okay, wait a second,
it doesn't start here.
Well, it doesn't start here, and how will I know? And again, there's so many things that are critical. But then I started doing a study, and I'll share it eventually, on fruit. because I've heard so many people giving me their resume about how proving that they're so faithful as to the Lord. And again, I'm not trying to go there with that, but I am saying what we value on the earth in the Western context, in the church, or in the United States specifically, is not necessarily biblical. In fact, it's far from biblical in a lot of ways. And so if we're using metrics that are worldly to evaluate supernatural biblical fruit, then I don't think you can do that. It's like trying to
That's impossible.
But it's the wrong paradigm. It's the wrong metric. It's the wrong context. And if we can't get that, if we can't keep going, what's the world doing, and let's do that so that we're good, I think that's what this is. With what we're talking about with this Gnosticism is again both of these extremes, asceticism and the licentiousness. Yeah. They're both looking at the world and trying to navigate it using worldly metrics instead of biblical ones. And I think that's where we get into the problem. And so when you talk about people whose fruit is horrific, one, I hope that there is a team of people that are trying to help this person or people find their way to the true Jesus, instead of just going, oh, we knew and we're not gonna, because there's a culpability there. This is a human being who needs to get reconciled to God, like all of us, right? So there's that.
You're talking about the false teachers, or
I'm talking about the false teachers. I'm talking about this thing at Bethel that's going on right now, which isn't new, by the way. I don't know why it's just been popped out like new. It happened months and months ago in some very real ways, but
I think we haven't seen the some of the
newer stuff. But I think that's the thing is there's nothing new under the sun, and roots bad, fruits bad. It just is. I mean, just any gardener knows that. Any gardener. And if you have a bad root, you that's never gonna come back.
Yeah, you got to take it out at the root, and which means essentially
cut everything back.
With IHOPKC, it's shut it down. So I mean, we've been saying that all along. So
right.
Kurt Fuller and the rest, shut the thing down. Bethel, it's the same way. It's the same thing.
Right.
Because what we're talking about is men and leaders who actually believe that Jesus came as a man. Well, there's so many problems with that. Not to mention the fact that they're, with their manifest sonship beliefs or presence beliefs, whatever it may be, that they actually want to take some of Jesus' deity, or they're going to be deified themselves at some point. If that's not bad enough, what does that do for salvation if you say that Jesus only came as a man? It negates it. So there's so many problems with it, and that root is bad. Let's finally say it. Let's get it out in the open.
Right.
Bethel's root is bad. That's why these things are happening. Why are we trying to put new clothes on what, the pig? Is that the phrase?
On the pig.
Lipstick on the pig.
But
yeah, why are we trying to dress something up?
Well, we are because groups of people want it to be more. That it's the asterisks. It's not enough. And here's the thing: if Jesus was only a man, him dying for our sins would have meant nothing.
Right. Exactly.
It would not have. It would not have worked. It would not have happened.
He was the God man. Not that we can become God men like the manifest sonship. He is the Word.
Always will be.
Flesh.
Always was.
And he needed to be God, and he needed to be man.
Amen.
That's for sure. Well, let's read this last scripture verse here. I guess I'll go ahead and do that. She says, of course, the Bible condemns both groups, and it speaks of the lawless in this way. Man, we've talked about this passage quite a few times. Yeah, spots they are and blemishes, sporting themselves with their own deceivings while they feast with you. For when they speak great swelling words of vanity. Can we just stop there? Because that, I see that so often.
That's such a picture. Great swelling words of vanity.
Yeah, and in my version, it says it a little bit different. It says great swelling words of emptiness. That's the picture that I have. Like, these are empty words. These are clouds without water. These are broken cisterns that can't hold water. Why? Because you didn't go through the door.
Right.
You've got to go through Jesus.
The vanity of vanities.
Will they allure you through the lust of the flesh, through much wantonness? Those that were clean escaped from them who live in error. Will they promise them liberty? They themselves are servants of corruption. For of whom a man is overcome, of the same he is brought into bondage. So, yeah, a lot of this licentiousness, or this freedom to do. We hear a lot, let's just end it with this.
Right. Freedom.
We hear a lot about freedom. We are Americans, right? We talk about freedom. Don't tread on me. Don't mess with my freedom, so on and so forth. And it's a relative freedom that we have here. In other words, we live next to neighbors, and there's actually rules and laws in this country. You probably, if you live in a subdivision, you're not going to have roosters. I mean, that's
I'm not free to steal your truck.
It's a relative freedom. So this idea that, hey, I could do whatever I want. Well, I learned that actually in my life back in the day through a long list of ways in which I went away from the Lord and got involved in addiction and all kinds of things. But man, isn't that the case? A lot of these folks will say, well, I want the freedom to do what I want to do. And by having that kind of freedom, that infringes on somebody else's freedom, doesn't it?
Right. And it's that playing the tape out, right? The you do you conversation of if what I want to do is steal your child, right? What if I want your kid, or what if I want your truck, or anything, your job? There's boundaries that we always say, play the tape out, you and I, of like, okay, play that out. Okay, worst case scenario, where does that go? That goes, I decide I want your red truck. I want a red truck. I want yours because I like it. So I'm going to take it because I'm going to do me, and it's freedom. And it's like, wait, no, that's a twisting and a warping of what that word means. And I think that's it, is like when you stretch it out so much that it loses shape, and it actually loses what it actually was in the first place, because you it's so morphed and misshapen that it doesn't even look like what it was originally made to be. And I think that,
well, whether you're talking about freedom and like the you do you, or whether you're talking about truth, I mean, that's what we need, is we need the truth of God's word, and we need to stay in it. And the problem is, there's a lot of people saying that with truth too. Well, you have your truth, and I have my truth, and you have your freedom, and I have my freedom, and this is what we have these days. But this is an example of that licentiousness. And that other side of the Gnostic twisting that's going on. And you see this Gnosticism in the church today. You see it evident in the church.
Well, and I think that's the conversation, is there is one truth, and he is a man. And this is his word. He is the word made flesh. That's the truth. And it's in this word, and
yes, it is. So
it is what it is.
I guess that wraps it up for today. It looks like we handled most of what she had mentioned. So thank you for joining us, folks, today. Thank you for making your comments and watching us babble on sometimes. But I was referring to me, not you. You never do that. So
what a good husband he is.
Thank you, folks. God bless you all. Thank you for praying for us. I know some people have said that in the comments.
Thank you.
We so appreciate that. We so appreciate you walking with us on this pilgrim road. God bless you.